Welcome back to the Booked Pro podcast.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here once again.
Notice how we did that? We actually have a name. So
Yeah,
original. Last episode, second episode 2, we were the No Name podcast. Today we're like, we might as well just call it the Booked Pro podcast.
or maybe when we're doing it together, it can be the booked bro.
The Booked Bro podcast. Our our marketing partners is Hard Hat Pros, but they all their social media handles are the Hard Hat Bros. That was pretty brilliant.
That's great. I
Yeah,
love
it's
it.
really good. That's really good. So, well, cool. We got a lot of cool, exciting things to talk about today. We're going to go over some intros in a second. But first, what I'd really like to talk about is our topic for today, which is really exciting for me.
Let's hear it.
It's about you.
Oh, you're my favorite topic.
You're my favorite topic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're my favorite topic. So, we're going to, like I said, we're going to get into a little bit of intros and background here in a second. But at the Booked Pro, Jason has made the I don't know I don't know what if it's a great
Inauspicious.
an auspicious decision to help us out. So, which is really cool because I want to get into why here in a little bit, but Jason's a fractional VP. He's got tons of experience, scaling and growing companies through sales, and I'm gonna let him go over a lot of that. And we have a lot of clients, and we set a lot of appointments for clients, and our clients. I went through something recently. I'm sorry to fumble through this, but I went through something recently where I wanted to add massive amount of value to every single client that comes on board to us. Besides just, hey, we're going to handle your lead flow, book you qualified appointments, make sure they show up and help you make more money. Like that's one thing, but we've kind of gotten a situation where we're meeting with our clients weekly, monthly, bi-weekly, whatever they want, and them access to Jason through us, through goal setting, but also give our clients access through Jason, to be hired on the side through a fractional VP service. But initially, I mean, get up front, have them be there on us, I guess, for you to add value.
think
My
I
fumbling
think it's
grammar
important.
or
Well, I think it's important maybe to back up just a minute, right? So, because, we both subscribe to the same philosophy that for the types of businesses that we see value in working with, that we talk about the three pillars all the time, right? And Book Pro is a master and world class at that second pillar, and you've been able to help a lot of clients. But in the process of doing that, you've identified that that third pillar is an area where potentially you can add value, and that's where my expertise comes in. So maybe it's important for you to sort of review the three pillars of where we see the business flowing.
perfect. Let's go back to home service companies, whether they're flooring retailers, HVAC, plumbers, roofers, it doesn't matter, right? There's 3 things that any home service company needs to do in order to scale their marketing and scale in their business. Marketing is just a broad, loose term. Is they need to have constant, steady lead flow or opportunity flow coming in the business. That's defined as Google ads, Facebook ads, walk-in clients, referral business. Doesn't matter what it is. It's opportunity that comes in daily and monthly. Pillar 2 is going to be how do you manage, what's your internal process to receive that opportunity, phone call, lead, get back to them quickly, 60 seconds, immediately, 10 seconds, qualify that client, set them up on a calendar, remind them, that whole internal process of lead management. Pillar 2. And then pillar 3 is your sales process. What happens when your salesperson steps in the front door of that house or comes into the office? How do they manage that lead, that appointment? How do they, add value? How do they understand, that's your side of it and close essentially to generate revenue for the company. So those 3 pillars working together is what scales businesses, not just
And
hiring somebody and handing it off.
and what's really important to realize is that there are some analytics around those numbers, right? Because there are a lot of companies out there that essentially have been trying to operate using only the first pillar, right? So they pay for ad space, they pay, Google ads, all that kind of stuff. And if they really do the numbers and really drill down, their closing ratio is not very good, right? So they may pay for hundreds of leads a week, and they're really only closing a very small percentage of that. But Pro is able to uh, massively improve that closing ratio from lead generation to actually getting a meeting, right? That's the part that you guys can control. But then turning that meeting into revenue is the third pillar, which is another. So now we're going from 1,000 leads to 100 book meetings to 25 invoices, right? And so it's all about closing. And using I'm a baseball guy, so using baseball analogy is it's how many pitches are being thrown at you versus how many times you're making contact and how many times you're scoring a run, right? And so we just need at bats at the beginning, but we're trying to improve our batting average, right? And so where I think the two businesses just really mesh really well together is it's really hand in glove, because the better job that you guys are doing in terms of booking appointments, now they can bring more at bats to their salespeople. Because think about it, like we've talked about this before, like the vast majority of home service um, owners were probably at some point on the tools, and they've morphed from a guy driving around in a truck, a one-man operation, to building slowly to 3 to $10 million in revenue. And they're guys that are phenomenal at the operation side of the business, but the sales and marketing is lost on them because that's just not something that they've received a lot of training. And they've sort of got to 3 to 6 million by accident, just simply by being good operators, but they've hit this ceiling and they can't grow their business, right? So what we're trying to accomplish is to basically bring in processes and systems in things that they just aren't really comfortable doing.
Yeah, and you're right. Like, let's say one of these guys, it's funny. We have two different avatars that we've created for our business a long time ago. Is I have names for them. It's not really relevant, but is there's two different. You have the guys that have been in the industry. Maybe it's dad's business. They grew up on the tools. They grew to the point where they got a van, a warehouse, a retail store, all the mills opened up. They're doing, a few million to $10 million a year. And they kind of got there by being in their market, doing quality work, doing great, growing their business. And they've kind of figured out the systems and processes as they go.
A
And
lot
that's
of
a
word of
lot.
mouth, a lot of word of mouth,
Yeah.
right? They do a good job. Somebody
Yeah.
recommends them. They've never really had to invest or investigate, proper lead flow or, marketing plans and all that kind of stuff. And that's the way a lot of these small businesses organically grow. It's understandable. It's not that they're doing anything wrong. It's just that they've sort of maxed out those avenues.
Yeah. And then you got the investor type, the people that buy their business.
Mm,
Right. And the same thing scales both avatars, both companies. Right? It's the people that buy the company see the opportunity, right? And they implement systems. They implement processes that lead management, marketing systems, sales systems, like all that stuff. And that's their, keys to growth. And then it's the same time when the owner or the installer moves into systems and processes, they find the same scale too. It's just kind of is if they do it or when they do it. You know what I'm saying?
right. Exactly. Yeah. And I think where, companies run into problems is I think we talked about this 2 podcasts ago, right? Is there's an art and a science to sales, right? And there are, if we polled 100 people on the street and asked them, what do you think of when you think of a salesperson? The average person thinks of the sales guy as that, hey, how's it, used car salesman, kind of very charismatic, very, great with people, but, maybe not the most trustworthy person in the world. That's what the average person thinks of with selling. The reality is do you need to be likable? Absolutely. But there's a science to selling, just like there's an art. And if you don't have an equal combination of the two, you're going to eventually max out your abilities, and
Yeah,
so you're going
science
to
is
hit
not
a
all
ceiling.
personality.
Exactly. And if you're all science and no art, then you're kind of a robot and not very likable, and nobody's going to want to do business with you, right? But
And it's
um,
very process driven.
yeah, exactly. And so, like, ultimately, what is the goal of any business? Right? It's to be profitable. It's to serve the people that work for the business and provide employment and put food on the table. But a, a business is ultimately trying to grow year over year, right? Now, the amount of growth is different for every industry, but how do you grow and repeat any success that you've had early on? I've sat down with many salespeople who had great years, right? Maybe they budgeted $1 million in sales and they came in and they exceeded their budget. And I said, "Great, that's fantastic. Congratulations. How are you going to do this again next year?" And they stare at you with this blank stare because they don't have a process. They just kind of manna fall from heaven and they kind of got lucky, right? And so unless you anything that you can't track, you can't improve. So you need processes, you need some way of identifying how did you get to where you were, or did you just get lucky? Are you going to be able to repeat it? How are you going to grow and scale that business next year? And the best way to do that is by knowing your book of business, knowing your customers, knowing where your business is coming from. But just as important is where are you missing opportunities? Where's the lost opportunity cost within your book of business, right? So all of those things play a factor in growth because you and I both know the easiest way to grow your business is to sell more things to your existing customer base because the hardest thing in the world is to acquire new customers. So why not analyze your book of business and say, okay, can I have a repeat customer or can I get a referral from an existing customer? Like those, that's gold, right? But if you're not tracking, if you're not maintaining those relationships, if you're not using a CRM properly, it's very difficult to do. And now you're just trying to survive the week, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, you're so right. So, like, it's when you think about this partnership that we're going to be moving forward with in Q2, I kind of want to talk about really what that looks like. But before we even get into that, anybody that's watching this podcast, the 12 people that watch us religiously, our 3 podcasts so far, is I would like to know, I want you to tell, like, who are you? Like, why are you qualified to be a fractional VP for a, 2 to $10 million company working in home services? Like, can you give us a little bit about your background? And maybe if they know your background the way I know your background, maybe they'll be excited too.
yeah. So I started in the industry 23 years ago. And I built my own sales and marketing agency from scratch to a national company with 35 employees doing roughly 50 to $60 million in sales. And I did that in my mid 20s. It was very exciting. It
So just a
was
few
very
years ago,
scary
right?
just a few years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was very exciting. I newly married. My daughter was born shortly after, so it was a whirlwind. But it was a lot of fun. It was a great industry, very creative. Gave me an opportunity to trial and error a lot of what I do now that is second nature. I learned from a lot of mistakes that I made along the way. And I parlayed that, ended up selling that business, did some consulting for a short time, and then went to work for the largest flooring manufacturer in the world, where you and I met. And right away went into some senior leadership roles there. Was the VP of sales for Canada, uh, became the global director of business development, and traveled all over the world and building and growing sales teams all over the world. And taking that sort of entrepreneurial mindset, that's what kind of, I guess, attracted us to each other. Is they were looking to grow avenues of business that they had never really played in before, because that market was very dealer driven, very dealer focused, and we were looking to grow the business from an enterprise perspective, so with large end users. And so I worked there for the last 12 years, and it was a great ride, and that was a lot of fun. And like I said, I got to see the world and build sales teams in 4 continents, and it was great. But it was time to come home, and I'm looking now to build my own business again, once again. So it's kind of come full circle.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really
Yeah.
cool. And it's perfect timing too, because we've been evaluating the last 2 quarters on how we support our clients, and outside of just lead management and the systems and processes that we implement in their business to set them up with appointments, and the timing is just awesome. And what I really want, and I'm going to kind of tell you, we talked about this a little bit, off this
Mhm.
phone call, obviously, or off this podcast, but we both heard of the EOS system, the entrepreneurial operator. I think it's Gino Wink, that wrote the book. I read the book, and I'm not saying I didn't take the whole thing. It's valuable. I haven't implemented a lot of that stuff into my business, but one of the things that I've implemented in my business is the level 10 meeting weekly. And I'm going to explain what we do weekly as a team at the Booked Pro. And then I'm going to kind of talk about how I'm going to apply this to our clients for accountability and accomplishing goals. So we meet every week. We do it on Tuesday. Everybody settles in on Monday, come in on Tuesday, and I schedule about an hour and 15 minutes for my entire team to come on. All appointment setters. We have, um, sales. We have me. Everybody that's like everybody in our company comes on to this one call. And the idea is the flow of the meeting is we come in and we go over our large rocks. Our large rocks are our quarterly goals, right? And we simply just go through it and within 5 minutes. Every department has a quarterly goal. On target or off target. If it's on target, we go to the next one. If it's off target, we say, okay, we need to talk about this, and we'll move it down to the section of the meeting, which we call IDS, identify, discuss, solve. The IDX portion of the meeting. Come in there. We'll talk about that in a minute. We go through all the goals, all the big rocks. Now, everything that moves down that's off target, everything that's on target, we just leave it alone. Then we go into headlines. Hey, well, give me some wins over the last week. What are we looking at? I kind of ask everybody to give me a win. If you don't have a big win in business, it's fine. But I want to know a win what's going on in your personal life and within my team, whatever it may be. And then after that, we have the task list. The task list is the 7-day list, right? The quarterly goals, and then we have the weekly goals. The task lists are all the things that we decided in last week's meeting that we had to have done in the next week or so. Nothing should ever be on the task list longer than 14 days. Right. So if I say, hey, oh, yeah, you know what? We need to do that. We should fix that reporting or whatever we do. All right. You're going to do that. Great. Ibrahim, you do that. I'll put that on the task list. We'll check it out. And just make sure that nothing slips through none of our commitments to one another slip through the cracks. Right. And then once we get through all the previous tasks, then we spend the bulk of the meeting, which is always about 45 minutes, IDS. And this is where we train our team members to solve their own problems. And look for solutions in areas they might be having a hard time, systems, process, everything's up for conversation, right? First thing we do is like, hey, okay, sales, why is sales off target? If that was one of our rocks, I'm just giving you an example, that one of our quarterly goals. Sales would be like, okay, what do you need from me? What can we do to help you? Is it an ad thing? Is it a budget thing? And we'll break it all down. We'll figure it out right there and say, hey, what are the action steps? And they go in the task list, which we review on the following week. Roger? So we go through the whole thing and we solve each other's problems. And then we're all done. Meeting's over. And at the end of it, I ask everybody to rank the meeting, right? Because this should be a level 10 meeting. We want everybody to say this is a 10. I do believe 10 is an unreachable number. Nobody should ever give a 10, right? We need something constructive, but everybody ranks the meeting. So it's like, hey, this was a 5, this was a 6, this was a 7, this was a 9. Everybody should find value in this meeting. Right? Everybody should be here. We ask everybody to not miss it. You're on time. I commit to every person that I will not be a minute late, meaning getting off. If I say this hour is an hour and 15 minutes, I am off. I am not holding anybody a minute longer, no matter what. Years I've been doing this, I've never been late. But I also ask everybody to show up on time. And I ask, don't miss this meeting unless it's death or vacation. Right. So it's a place that we collect and touch every single week as a team. So I want to take the same concept that we do, which has been just so valuable for our company, our relationship for one another, our problem solving. And I want to start doing this with our clients. So we're going to take our client success manager as a primary contact with every one of our clients. They meet weekly, bi-weekly, whatever the client wants. We're there to support them. right? We're going to take the same concept and simplify a little bit so we can get it done in about 20 minutes if we need to. Meaning that we're going to bring in Jason to meet with every client initially and say, one, because I want to expose somebody that's so valuable in my life to my business and what I do to some of my clients and be able to add more value at no additional price to them. Let's talk about a goal setting. What's going on in your company? What's going on? What's your goals? We'll set the goals. Like, can we do that within, the parameters of what we have and what we do now? Jason can be brought into those meetings to help set those goals for us. Right. And then, meet quarterly. He's available to our clients if they want to hire him on the side, or I'm sure you don't mind as people reach out to you. I'm trying not to totally destroy your schedule, but, but really have those meetings be driven by our client success manager and have you support, right? If there's some really complex, problems or some harder business problems that maybe, having the right person come in and help solve those problems is just really an awesome thing to have access to, because a lot of our clients just don't have access to people like you.
What's interesting is the little bit that we have done already is, the list of things that companies like this of this size are struggling with is
Mhm.
it's so long, right? Like they're just they're up to their eyeballs in the operation side of the business.
Mhm.
And like I started thinking about just the list of possible value adds, like where somebody like myself can add value. And it just goes on and on and on. Like implementing and not implement, because you guys bring a great CRM to the table that you get your clients using, but actually following through and ensuring that it's trickling down to the entire sales team, like it's not just the operator that's using it, right? And how about things like their compensation plan that they put together for their sales guys? The easiest thing in the world is to hire a salesperson, put them on a salary, and then pay them a commission based on margin,
Mhm.
right? Which is pretty typical in our industry. But in talking to people, you start finding out that the salespeople aren't stupid, right? If they're getting paid on margin, they're going to gravitate to products that pay the highest margin. And all of a sudden now, if you're a retailer who's inventorying product and you have products sitting in a warehouse, the margins are lower and salespeople are not gravitating to it, and you're not turning that inventory, that's money sitting on the shelf. So how do you motivate salespeople who are primarily motivated through, money to sell products at a lower margin? Well, maybe there needs to be some tweaks made to your compensation plan to drive the behaviors that you're trying to get out of your sales team. And somebody who's just kind of taken a cookie cutter approach to their comp plan, that's something that might be beyond their capabilities, right? So that's something that we can help them with. That's been a huge tool.
Yeah, that's gonna be awesome. So let's look at it like this. I would like to kind of, and we've been talking about this on the outside, and we still haven't completely landed on, an exact process to do this. But there's still a lot stuff that we should feel our way through. There's still lot of value to be added just feeling your way through stuff like this. Um, so let's say we take on your first meeting, at the end of this month, get us set up for Q2 with one of our bigger clients. So let's say he's doing $3.5 million. He's got a sales team. He's got 2 locations in California. And I'm not putting you on the spot here, but I want to try to explain a situation of the way this is going to go. I'm going to kind of be that first meeting, but you, success manager, and you jump on a call, talk about goals. Like, what are you looking to grow this year? I know we're in Q2, but like, how much growth are you looking? Outside the mathematical factor, which we're really good at, meaning that you have X amount to spend on ad spend, you have X amount of leads coming in, about improving booked appointment rate, improving close rate, which is on your side. You can mathematically figure out the delta, I guess, right? Of where they need to be. But like, what's the kind of value add that you have in helping our clients set goals for Q2 that meets their sales goals or their growth goals?
Well, it kind of ties into what we were talking about before in that at bats versus closing ratio and, making contact to scoring runs. If you, even if your team is perfect in execution, right? And you're able to book these, 50% of the leads that come in, which would be phenomenal, right?
Mhm.
Um, but
We
their
do that
team,
myself.
yeah, so we were talking about quality warm leads, right? But then that closing ratio of those drops off dramatically. Even if you guys do everything perfect, but they're not following through, they're not closing those, then it loses some of its value, right? They don't necessarily see value in what you're doing, even though you guys are knocking it out of the park, And we talked about this before, just about accountability, right? And so one of the things that I will do with these operators is say, okay, let's fast forward 12 months, right? And we're sitting here and we are celebrating a wildly successful previous 12 months. What does that look like for you? And they're, depending on what it looks like, how they want to grow, what they want the business to look like. Are you adding salespeople? Are you growing your territory? Are you just trying to improve your closing rate? And, finding out what's preventing them from doing that right now.
Mhm.
And very often it's going to be that there's no sort of decided upon sales process. They're basically just throwing stuff against the wall and hoping that it sticks.
Mhm.
So immediately the low hanging fruit will be creating a repeatable sales process, a follow up process, ensuring that people are actually making the call, right, and doing the things necessary to take those leads that you guys are booking and actually have a decent closing ratio on those.
Yeah, and
You
that's why I
know,
like introducing the L10 meeting in this, and we meet with our clients as often as they want to. We have some people that meet weekly, biweekly, and monthly, right? But my challenge to the team while we're rebuilding this entire process on how we manage clients is that I want 0 slippage. I want 0 slippage on commitments and tasks. And that's why we, as a group, decided that bringing this meeting to our clients is the most important thing because you could easily step in and say, hey, the client says, I want to do this and that. You're like, this sounds great. We should do this. We all make a commitment, come back in 2 weeks. And how often do you see nothing's been done?
Mhm.
That's something we
Exactly.
need to manage as well. So L10 is going to allow us to have a structure to every meeting. Meaning when we step in 2 weeks, like we talked, this was the data that we needed, reports we needed or whatever it is, we're all accountable. And so that's what I really like about this too. And we're actually building a system behind the scenes from this is like, how do we manage so many clients, so many tasks, so many everything, leveraging software so that way we have one master task list, for everybody when we manage them individually, right? Because you can imagine how 5 to 10 to 20 different to-do lists are worse than having one or
Yeah.
having none, right? So
And
there's
off
some
a lot
there's
of
some software
sorry.
challenges that we're working around too. We're almost just about there.
And a lot of times it comes down to, holding people accountable. And not that I'm an accountability coach, but there is an element of that is that if you're spending your hard-earned money on your service and then, my service, there's an added motivation to get real good value from those services. So, regular check-ins, it's like, hey, listen, we made a decision that this is what was needed from your team to really get the full value out of what we're doing. And don't forget, you talked about what you were hoping to accomplish in 12 months. That's not going to happen by accident. Here are let's remind let's rehash what we said that we were going to do. We all agreed to do, right? And so maybe there is an element of some accountability coaching that goes on as well. And this is something that people don't talk about with small businesses is that it's not like a big corporation where there's giant teams and a boardroom full of executives where they can all bounce ideas off each other. Oftentimes these operators, they're kind of lone wolves and they're kind of like out in the world alone and they're naked and exposed. And having a team like yourself and your team and myself, all of a sudden that's a warm, cozy feeling to have people that are looking out for their interests and that can provide a little bit of a sounding board, that can be sort of a consigliere in the background, right? There's tremendous value in that for small business. I know when I started my very first bit, I didn't have any of that, and you trial and errored everything. I would have killed to have a team like yours in my court. right? So
It's the biggest cheat code in business, right? I don't I'm sure I stole that from somebody, but I repeat it daily when I'm talking to people is the biggest cheat code is find somebody that's done it and have them show you how to do it.
yeah, yep. It's not rocket science, but it's hard work, right?
It is
It's
hard.
not, yeah, it's not complicated, but it's difficult,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm really excited. And I love the fact that I mean, we've been talking about working together for years.
Hmm.
You've always been on my if I can afford Jason list. If I could ever afford you or convince you to work with me because I don't know, we have a great relationship, we have a great friendship. I totally value what you do professionally and personally, but an opportunity for you to finally, step over and kind of help us out with the project and I do want to say too that like this is an opportunity for our clients, an introduction for our clients into somebody that does incredible work and has incredible insight and has been there and to like have a relationship with Jason on the side, not through us. I'm not the guy that likes to monetize my personal relationships. I would rather, as you know, and anybody that's ever met you is if you can add value to any one of my clients or friends, how many meetings have I set you up with people? Like if I could have one job in my life, it would just be connect people. And so we've worked with clients together before, and this just gives me an opportunity for me to expose you to more of my clients and my clients to you. Because the more they're closing and the more successful their business is, the faster mine grows,
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
better impact that we can have, the better
Totally.
feedback loop that we can have, the better processes we can have, the more we can help them scale their marketing company, marketing offers so we can manage more leads. It's just a win-win all the way around for everybody involved. So I'm awfully excited. It's a good week for me.
I'm excited too. I'm excited to work with good people, and you've built such a great team there of very talented people. I honestly think that what you guys do is one of the best kept secrets in the industry, because I think people, um, the assumption is, as a small business owner, I know I got myself into trouble doing this when I was first in business, is that you take on everything yourself, as opposed to bringing in experts that to do the things that you're not exceptional at, right? And how many small businesses don't want to hire an accountant, so they do their own bookkeeping, and meanwhile they're spinning their wheels doing things that they're not experts at, and they're leaving money on the table just
Mhm.
to save a few $100, right?
Yeah.
But to work with people like yourself, that gets me very excited, and mostly because there's authentic people, authentic business people in this world that are genuinely excited and drawn to helping people. And they recognize that a rising tide raises all the ships.
Yeah.
And then there's people that are kind of just self-serving. And I think that's why you and I kind of gravitated to each other early on, is that, everything was about helping other people succeed, and knowing that by doing that, you were inadvertently going to help yourself succeed.
But
Right.
yeah,
So
I subscribe to Rising Tide floats all boats. I mean, I don't want a Ferrari. I mean, my drive to be massively successful is to be the rising tide for my network, my family, anybody that wants to be in this circle that we're creating. Is what kind of value, what kind of opportunity and value can we add to others? That's what gets me excited. The impact of my own community, that kind of stuff. Not yachts and helicopters and fast cars. Fast cars are cool, but just not my thing.
yeah. And the good news is, if you do it right, you're going to have an opportunity to have those things anyway. Right.
Yeah,
So
totally,
yeah,
totally. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, exciting stuff. So you know what? I was just thought about our new campaign that we'll run. Is it'll be like, hey, sign up with the Book Pro, get access to Jason. I'm gonna get a whole bunch of people signing up as new clients just to get access to you.
Or repel them when yeah. Yeah.
Not definitely not
But
repel them. Yeah, I'm gonna get 5 new clients just because you're on board. Like I get Jason for free. I'm gonna save me a lot of money.
yeah, no, it's exciting. And, I think we talked about this before, about this accountability thing. And it's funny, I was thinking about this ahead of time, but um, I know a lot of people in the personal training space, and I thought to myself, boy, it's probably something that they deal with on a daily basis. How many people sign up with a personal trainer and they're 2 months in and their motivation's kind of waned and they're not following through and they're not tracking their food, and they don't send their update to their coach, and then after 3 4 months they go, oh, this isn't working, and they blame the coach, right? And when the reality is that the little small things that the coaches ask them to do, they're not doing it. And it's a constant reminder. It's like, hey, this is what you agreed to do. And I think a lot of what we do for clients is just keeping them on the road to success and holding their feet to the fire. And because, like we said, it isn't a complicated what we're doing,
Yeah.
but it is challenging, and you have to be consistent with your efforts if you really want to grow your business.
Yeah.
So um, it's that constant sort of let's hold hands here. We're in this together, and we're giving people that warm and fuzzy feeling that they've got somebody in their corner.
Yeah. I've been talking to my internal team about this for years, right? Like, it comes down to when we ask a client to do something, it's their benefit. It's in their benefit, not ours. Like, hey, we need to make some changes to the process so that way we can meet your intended desires and outcome. And we find that every single time that we find friction or like, hey, we have a problem, that even if it's like, I don't know, like we do a lot of thumbtack leads management, right? Like, update your account, get your reviews in there, da da da. It doesn't happen. We identify those so quickly now, right? And
Mm.
we say, hey, we have to build an internal process to do this and to them. We are constantly getting them out of their own way. So that way we don't have because we have to show value fast in what we do. We can't be stepping in and not showing value and not growing their business. So anybody not executing requests and tasks, if we can find a way to take that on internally, like, we're going to do it. So now we're updating everybody's accounts internally. We built our own process. We have our own system where we're doing it all internally because we had so much friction. Sometimes it takes people 60 days to do that. Right? It's like, give us the keys, give us full access. We're already doing all the connections, but now we're going to start managing that account for you. You control the budget, but we're going to control, how the profile and that stuff. But it comes down to back to what you were saying to tie this in, is that people fail for coaching and services like personal training because one is they fail for two reasons. One, because it doesn't align with their future self that they see themselves, or it doesn't align with them deeply emotionally of what they desire and want so bad, right? That's one. The second one is they're biting off more than they can chew. So anytime that's ever anybody, those are the two main reasons why people fail at anything, not just personal training. So if you're new to fitness, which you're clearly not, I'm going to say, hey, Jason, I'm going to get you going on a program. I'm going to throw you into CrossFit 7 days a week. I'm also going to have you track your food. I'm going to have you quit drinking those damn Diet Cokes, and you're not going to eat any more junk food, no snack foods. You're going to have 4 times a day, and it's going to be a protein. You're going to fail because you've asked them to do way too much. I think great
Good point.
coaches identify, like, is the goal we're setting aligned with the future version of yourself that you desirely so deeply that you'll do anything to get there? One. And two, am I, as the coach, starting you off at a reasonable expectation that you can grow? Because everything's like a brick wall. You got to put one brick down. You know what I don't have you do this week, Jason? You're going to quit Diet Coke. That is it. Maybe that's the 5th brick for some people, right?
Mhm.
Or maybe eliminate the snack foods, whatever it is, like one thing. Maybe week 2, week 3, we're going to introduce something else. Get rid of the Diet Cokes. We're going to talk about tracking. We're going to put together, a list on how to, stock your food and prep food to start eating right throughout the day. But like, if you can layer that stuff in so it's not so overwhelming, right? Momentum starts to build on anything in business and fitness. It doesn't matter. Momentum builds,
Hmm.
right? But you have to
Like
give
compound interest.
you have to have an opportunity for momentum to build, because every time momentum builds and you add something else, it's like you get to this point in business or fitness and you're like, I feel invincible. I can do anything just because my goal setting was managed properly. right? And it aligns with what I really want because nobody will ever do anything if it doesn't align with what they really want out of themselves.
100%. Yep.
Yeah,
And it's like, have you heard of the law of incremental gains? You heard of this
I'm
theory?
actually I know exactly what you're talking about, but I haven't heard that phrase. No.
So take if you use the example of an Olympic athlete, maybe a track athlete, right? The difference between the collegiate national champion and
Hmm.
the Olympic gold medalist is probably 4/10 of a second in
Hmm.
the 100-meter dash. Okay, so that the Olympic athlete is 4/10 of a second faster than the NCAA champion. So now that guy is going to make the Olympic team. He's got 4 years to shave 4/10 of a second off of his time. Seems like nothing, but in 100-meter dash, 4/10 of a second is probably 8 steps,
Hmm.
right? So that guy wouldn't even be in the picture at the
Yeah.
finish line, and yet he just won,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you shave 4/10 of a second off? Right? It's not done in 6 months. It's not done. It's 4 years in between Olympics. There's a reason for that, right? So, so every day that guy's looking to improve by a very small margin, little things, starting, getting a little stronger, getting a little, higher knees, all the things that go along with
Hmm.
getting a little bit faster. And so every day it's about getting 1% better, not 20% better or 50% better, 1%. And it's indistinguishable, right? You can't, there's from day one to day five, that nothing appears to have changed. But you multiply that over years, and all of a sudden now you're in contention, right? And so the law of incremental gains is that you just continue to make very small improvements, and eventually it's like compound interest, right? You'll see the value at the end. But interestingly, there's also the law of incremental losses,
Hmm.
right? If you're trying to get in shape and today you go out to Cheesecake Factory and have a big giant cheesecake, you do it once. Is it a gain or a loss? It's probably a loss, but it's not going to completely derail you, and you're starting right back to square one. But if you do that every day, now you're at a 1% loss every day, so you're moving the needle slightly backwards. And it's the same thing with business. You're going to have little minor setbacks, but it's like, do you have somebody like yourself in your corner? Are you working with a fractional VP that can come in and assess where maybe you're slightly off? And it's like, okay, we've had that 1% loss. Let's start moving it in the right direction now, right? And before you know it, 6 months, 8 months, a year, all of a sudden you're up 20% because you're doing the little things, the tiny little things every day, moving the needle in the right direction. And we keep coming back to this, but it's not complicated. It's just hard work.
It's just hard work, and it's about consistency, not intensity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's one thing I learned in my 40s is I learned my whole life I've been really intense, right?
Yeah, we know.
Probably, uh,
Those of you
uh,
that love you and know you know.
yeah. And it's like that's one thing I've learned in my 40s, my late 30s and into my 40s is I've learned the importance and the value of consistency. And it's one of the things I love about my life right now is I have been so consistent year after year after year of attacking my goals here in the company, right? Attacking my fitness and personal goals. And you can just see that it's the answer. And we should probably I'd love to put an analogy together, like because I think, like, for instance, we talk about athletes and business here, right? I see that athlete needs to do three great things. They need to, they need to train at your sport. Obviously, if your sport's riding bikes, you need to be on the bicycle. Obvious. A lot of people will just do that, you know. And but there's three things you got to do. You got to practice your discipline, your sport. Two, strength and conditioning outside of your sport. Absolutely imperative. And three, what you put in your body. Like every great athlete does those things. It's super important. And then you add consistency in there. It's like if you were to create an analogy with me on business, I would say strength and conditioning is probably your systems and processes. Is you got to kind of do it, you got to set it up, and you can't just do it every now and then, right? You got to be consistently working your
Mhm.
systems and processes every day. You can tool on your training, tool on your programming and what you're doing, plyometrics, strength, throughout the years, but you got to be consistently doing it. What about the other two? Your discipline would be your business, your problem that you solve, your skill. What would be the diet?
Maybe your lead generation, what you're inputting into the business.
There you go. That's a good
Yeah.
one. Like
Yeah.
your opportunity flow,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I always think of like what we're talking about. Like there's an old joke. Um, how do you eat an elephant?
My favorite. I have a
Right?
whole, you know this, I have a whole other like idea concept in the works. Elephant project. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like for most people, the idea of building a business and growing their business is this giant, massive ordeal and project, and they look at it and go, "Oh my God, how am I going to do this? It's so big and so it's unattainable. It's impossible. I'm a one man show. I'm a one man operation." And it's like, well, you know the answer. It's like one bite at a time, right? And I think that's where we've developed this sort of three pillar idea, is it really breaks down that massive opportunity to build a business or the big elephant and breaks it down into small bite-sized pieces, right? And makes it much more manageable. And all of a sudden, before you know it, you're well on your way because you haven't gotten derailed by having it seem so daunting, right? You know, that's you've done some pretty big hikes, like to a couple of big peaks out down there in Washington, haven't you? Didn't you do one of the big mountains one day on your?
I
I
don't
thought
do a
you
lot of
did that,
hiking. I don't do a lot.
but it's
I did
like
the biggest hike I've done in recent memories. When me and the family lived in New Zealand, and
mm,
we did like Rarotonga. I think it's Rarotongi, the
yeah,
something crossing. I can't remember. Rarotongi crossing. I can't remember. It's a full day.
like
They beat me up pretty good.
I've never done
Not an
any of those
endurance
types of
athlete.
things. But like I imagine if you stand at the bottom of Everest and stare up at the top and go, I'm never going to make it up there, right? But then you're just putting one foot in front of the other and focus
Yeah,
on the next step, not the end result. You know, you and I are both big on, you know, focus on the process, not the end result,
yeah, yeah.
and that's where we come in.
And that's another thing I think about. We're gonna hit all my favorite, my favorite quotes today. But one of my favorites is, if you're staring, looking up at, everybody swears they could scale mountains, and they're probably right. Anybody can do it. They have the right amount of determination, right? Anybody can do it, but
Hmm.
nobody ever makes it to the foothills. That's where everybody, nobody makes it to the mountain because the foothills is what kills you, the ups and downs.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's so true. I was curious, like in your experience with a lot of these home service companies, because you've been building this for several years now, and I come from a larger corporate background, but you know, when you see businesses fail and somebody that's been in business for 2, 3 years, and then a year later they're out of business, like they've had to close their doors. What has typically been their biggest downfall? Like why is it that they go out of business?
Well, I'll say this. I'm going to preface with this first. Is that just because I see something one way does not mean that's the way it should be, right? Um, and I'll say this, I'm gonna explain this in the example of priority of tasks. So if somebody is failing or somebody is not accomplishing the goals they set out to in their business, it's because the way I see it a lot of times is their priority of tasks, what they believe they need to be working on, what they're focused on, is not necessarily what's going to take them to the next plateau. Right. So I'll give you an example of somebody that I think we both know that. Um, yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to say this, but I think there's an example of somebody that we both know. And we both stepped in to help out, and we both agreed on the priority of tasks that need to happen within that business to get him across the line to solve his problems. And it was something that you and I saw so clearly, like 2020 vision from a perspective, because we've both been there, we've both seen it, right? And the client saw it completely different. And it wasn't a bad situation. They said, hey, this is not what I need to do. And an entrepreneur's vision should be respected, right? A
Mm,
founder's vision should be respected because a founder is cut from a different cloth. They're not a CEO, they're different, right?
mhm,
And if he sees it one way, he's going to be passionate. He's going to rally people like, you come do this. You can do this with me. Like build this team. And so I'm not saying he's not going to make it, but I saw it. And I think you may have seen it as a path that was quite a longer route to get to his goal than,
mhm.
you know what I'm saying? I don't know. I don't want to say too much because I have a massive level of respect for this guy.
Oh,
And
just a tremendous human being
yeah, just
and
wonderful person.
very passionate, and customers gravitate to him, and all that he's doing so many things great, right? But I feel for him because I know the his quality of life has suffered because hasn't been able to offload certain aspects of his business so that it can scale, and he's unintentionally become the bottleneck of his business, right? So, and it's like, and that goes back to what we were saying before. It's like, where do you see yourself a year from now? And
Yeah.
he's like, I want my business to run and operate without it having to rely so heavily on me. And that's, I think, the goal of a lot of small business owners, right? If you remove them from the business, does the business suddenly die? And it's like, what's the value of that business if you remove that key man or woman from the business? And if the value of the business drops significantly, then I would argue it's not really a business. You've just bought yourself a very complex job,
Mhm.
right? Because a business is one that can stand alone without any one individual,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
I
So,
have a, Yeah. I have a friend of mine that has a company right now. He's a regional company up here in the Pacific Northwest, and he sells sports equipment. And he has started a few years ago, a year and a half ago or so, he started building an online store. Right. And he went through and he hired the right marketing company, in my opinion. And I just try to support him as a friend and an industry guy that understands kind of online business, funnels, CRMs, processes, all that stuff that we do. And so I supported him through it. And just through the decision and the emotional parts of like, hey, I'm spending $500 a day or $1,000 a day and I'm not getting anything out of this. And I do have an aspect or something I always share to anybody that's going to enter an agreement with a marketing company is that um, you have to go into marketing like I'm not gonna quit till I can fail. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna fit. I'm not gonna quit. I'm gonna take it all the way. There's no failure, right? So
mm,
if you're gonna run campaigns, you're gonna run ads. It's not like buying stock, right? If you kind of buy stock and short sell and get out of it, or you sell short, you're gonna lose all your money. Um, you got to stay in it. And so for a year, I was like, stay in, let these guys work. They're good. Let them go, let them go. And he was losing money for a long time.
mm,
It's more of a budget. It's like, how long can you go? How long can you survive? And I know you're burning the candle at both ends, but once you make the decision to start, you got to go until you make it, no matter how long it is. And the 3 month is luck. Right? That's just a luck
mhm,
scenario. It gives you an idea where you are at 3 months for anybody considering marketing out there. Anyway, so he stood in for a year, right? And all of a sudden, his business freaking exploded. He started doing, $5,000 a day, $10,000 a day. He was just, and then he went from zero losing money to doing $250,000 a month in online sales. And now, and I just so happen to know this guy really, really well and talk to him very frequently about what's going on still. And now he's the bottleneck in his business, right?
mm,
And I'm always like systems and processes. How are you going to like when the business is slow or where you're spending money, it gives you something to focus on is how am I going to do this times 10? How am I going to do this times 20? Right. And right now in his business, he is working from 4:30 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, entering drop ship orders, packaging and shipping. He's got one person help him. Love you to death if you're listening to this, but there's no system and process. He's stressed that he's going to let somebody down. I'm sure he's like missing some stuff here and there. And he's almost at his capacity at the bottom or entering the ramp of success. Right. And so this is a very hard place to be because I don't have time to do anything. I'm doing all the work. If I get sick, nothing's getting done. The amount of pressure, the amount of stress. I love this man and I feel for him. I'm like, you have to get on this. You have to have somebody come in and shadow you. I don't care if you build the plane while you're flying it. You have to start getting this process because you can't do $500,000 a month. You can't do $1,000,000 a month if you're going to be the bottleneck in your business. And that may mean that you're going to have to work from 10 hours a day to 15 hours a day, but at least it's an investment in time that gets you back to like 6 hours or 4 hours or 3 hours, wherever you want to be. But if you maintain what you're hitting right now, you'll never grow and you'll burn out and you'll lose the whole thing. Right? That's a very hard place to be. And we have customers that come on in that state. Right? Like offload that entire part of your business to us. I will give you this block of time back. All you got to do is show up and execute. Right? And that's the important part. So it's like, that's a decision point or that's a point where entrepreneurs, I don't care what industry you're in, a roofer or, and this guy's sports equipment, like that's a tough place to be. We've all been there. Like I'm at 100%. I don't know what to do. And people like you, my friend, are the people that's, been there. They've seen it. They know their way through. It's the cheat code, right? It's the, I've been there. I've seen it. I can get you through this. But that's the only way you're going to grow is by having access to people that's done it before and to loop this whole thing back in. And that's why I'm so excited to have you, whatever version I have you, whether it's one meeting, a quarter or two, or whatever you decide to do, I'm so excited to have you because you're not only going to have an impact for every one of our clients, you're going to have impact to what we do here too. I know.
No, thanks, man. I'm excited too. And um, like I said, it's just nice to work with good people, and it's it's inspiring to see what you've done because I know everything that you're talking about, all of the trials and tribulations that your clients go through and all that stuff, you've lived it for the last couple of years, right? You've built this from nothing
I'm
and you've been
still
so
doing it.
passionate about it. Yeah.
I'm nowhere. I'm nowhere.
Yeah. No, it's impressive your stick to itiveness, and sort of grit through all of this is very impressive. It should be inspiring to your customers. It's inspiring to me. But it's not easy to build a business from scratch, and you're living it every single day.
Yeah, I'm in it. You got to love this stuff, man. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
You got
Yep.
to love it.
But
You
yeah,
got to be
no,
okay to
and
be uncomfortable. That's,
right.
being an entrepreneur is an uncomfortable life, and you got to be okay with some discomfort and pain. That's why I
Do we
love
ever
it. I
talk about?
freaking love
We ever
every
talk about?
minute of it. I love it, dude. It's like that extra rep at the gym that you have to fight for, nobody else does.
Yeah,
That's to me that's the analogy of what entrepreneurship is. Or
and
that like
nobody
day that you
sees, by the
don't
way.
nobody sees. And the day you don't want to go to the gym and you're like, hey, this is going to be an RPE 3 day. I'm going to show up and I'm going to do something because this is my process. This is my system. This is my consistency. Like that's to me what entrepreneurship is all about, is showing up every single day.
You hear the story about there was a book I read. It was called 3 Feet from Gold. So there was a guy who moved from New York. This was in the late 1800s when the gold rush was going on in California.
Mhm.
And people were moving across the country to California when they discovered gold to sell. He sold everything he had, came out to California, bought a plot of land, and started mining it, looking for gold. And he spent 3.5 years in his family's entire life savings and never found any gold. And he dug and dug, dug, and eventually he just gave up and he sold the land at a loss and went back to New York with his tail between his legs and died very poor. The guy that he sold the land to went in, made a left-hand turn in one of the tunnels, and 3 feet over from where he was digging, uncovered the largest vein of gold ever discovered in the state of California. And the guy was a billionaire
Let me guess.
by
So that was
today's
probably
standards.
Nevada City somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the moral of the story is, he was 3 feet from gold and he quit. Right. And I think that's what happens to a lot of entrepreneurs is they struggle and struggle and struggle and they realize that it's that compound interest thing, right? Initially, it doesn't look like you're making a ton of ground and it feels like you're spinning your wheels. But
Mhm.
that compound interest and having proper systems in place and processes, all of a sudden they start to pay dividends, and things start to take off, right? Because you've created the foundation, you've created the groundwork, and you can now you can move faster and more efficiently, right, instead of spinning your wheels.
I'm gonna I just thought about this. I'm gonna introduce you to my friend.
Hmm.
I never did
Which
that before. My friend that has a sporting good company I was just telling you about.
Oh yeah,
You could
absolutely.
change his life, bro. And he's close to you too.
Oh,
You could drive
nice.
down easily and see him.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. That's gonna be a great connection for both of you guys. Hey, you know a book you asked me to read long ago that changed my life? I don't know if I ever told you this.
Which one?
It's in my daily methodology. It's into my self talk. It's into everything that I do. It's in my strategy. Everything. Never told you this.
No.
The
Which book?
obstacle is the way.
Oh yeah. Yep. Ryan
It's in my
Holiday.
parenting. It's the way I coach my kids, my teenage girls. Anybody that doesn't know that, it's the way everything. It's the obstacle is the way. It's into the storm.
He's It's fantastic.
Yeah,
And I think I've read every one of his books at least once. So I've learned so much. I actually got to meet Ryan in Texas
yeah.
last year at a conference. He's great. He's
It inspires the personal content I make on Instagram, my personal reels. It's always about like the obstacle. It's about doing the hard things. It's about the character building, the
Yeah.
process, and consistency. It's just it's everything. You know, it's
I won't I won't show it, but I think I got Amora Fati is a little ink I got on the pec that I got from Ryan as well. So love your fate, and that's the whole idea too around obstacles your way is like,
somebody send this to Ryan. This is
yeah,
great. Yeah.
absolutely, yeah,
What else,
right
dude?
on.
What else? What else? Anything else you want to add before we wrap this thing up?
No, I think for anybody watching, I think we're constantly looking for ways to improve this podcast, improve our process. The same way that you're trying to grow your business, we're trying to grow this process because we know that we have something of value that can really help people. It's the method and the process in which we will use to get what's in here into your business. So we're looking for good partners to be able to do that with, and good people. And so I think interact with us and tell us what's worked, what's not worked, because we're looking to improve every day as well. That law of incremental gains applies to us as well.
Yeah, and we should be clear. We have roles here. Like Jason's the brains of the outfit. I'm just here for comedic relief.
Wait a minute, I thought you were the brains and I was
No,
the
you're the
the
brains.
face.
I'm the comedic relief. I'm here
Okay,
just to tell jokes.
I can't
I'm
believe that
holding
you
back,
let me
by the
turn
way,
my
because I got a
camera on.
lot.
I have an excellent face for radio, but just not for podcasts.
You can tell how the two of us, one of us is, has, gets to get out a little bit more on the beach or something, right?
Yeah, you need to see the sun.
I need to get the sun more. I do live in the Pacific Northwest, and I do spend a lot of time in this office. Yeah. I guess when I am outside, I'm wearing a helmet.
Oh, that's true too. Yeah, yeah.
Without context, that's a very funny
Falling
quote.
down a mountain.
I was without context, that'd be a really funny quote.
Yeah. Riding the short yellow bus wearing
That's
your
where I was
helmet.
going. Yep.
Yeah.
Licking windows.
Cut that part out.
Yeah, we're keeping it. That's gonna get clipped.
Right.
That's the only clip.
Right on.
That's the only clip that's gonna get clipped today. That will get more than 12 views.
Yeah, that's
Hey, my
funny.
friend, I appreciate you as always.
You as
I
well.
really love doing this with you. It's man, to have perfect co-host as you. We've been talking about this for years with people, and for us to finally do this and make it to episode 3 and even have a name, which is incredibly clever. Not really. Yeah, let's put together another great episode next week, and let's find another thing that we can improve on. Every week, we're going to do
Absolutely.
one thing better.
Every day.
The
One
jingle.
step
You
closer.
work on the jingle, all right?
The jingle. There you go.
You work on the
Perfect.
jingle. I'll work on the intro.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, my friend. Take care.
All right, brother. Okay, bye.
Bye.